Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Across the Ocean. My name's James in Miami.
And this is Matthias, straight from Zurich.
Matthias and I get together on a monthly basis to bring you a show focused on underwater filming techniques. We've taken you on a journey through our best usage for action cameras, we've taken you into our editing suite, and now we're going to take you on the road because we're going to start looking at traveling with camera gear. Specifically in this episode, we're going to be looking at how we pack and protect the thousands of dollars that we invest in our camera equipment. Matthias, how you doing, buddy? It's great to see you.
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, James. It's always good to see you as well. You were on vacation, weren't you?
I was, yes. So we took a little time off, went to France, saw the parents, all that kind of cool stuff. I actually, while we're on the subject, I found in France my first underwater camera. It's a Minolta.
This is so cool.
It's a Minolta Vectis GX4. How about that?
Look at that piece of equipment. High tech. I mean, this must be almost 30 years old. And it was at this time when film cameras were doing this funky thing where you could buy a specific type of film that was like 5 times the price of regular 35mm, and you'd have a selector switch on your camera and you could take photos in 3 different sizes. Classic, H, whatever H stood for, which was like a mid-size, and panoramic, which was a panoramic as it suggested. So it was really, really kind of a funky thing. And in addition to this, my mother had found the first underwater photo I'd ever taken, and I'll put it up there for the viewers to see, which was a shot of my brother when he was about 6 or 7 years old snorkeling in our hometown that I took with this very camera. So I just wanted to show everyone that because I thought it was pretty unique find as we were going through the vaults of my property and storage at my parents' house. It was pretty funny. This is awesome. This is awesome. I really like that.
Start them young, man. Start them young. That's it.
Man, you should find a really prominent spot for that camera somewhere behind you on that wall.
Absolutely. It's going up on the wall. I'm gonna make a special space for it for sure. So I've got a question because that made me think of something just before we were hit record on this session here. Do you know where your first ever underwater photo is?
My first ever underwater photo. It will probably also be at my parents' house. Right. At my parents' apartment. Very likely. At least the very first one that's ever been printed, that's ever been put on a wall or anything. I might have taken some photos before, but they just disappeared, were destroyed, got lost. But the very first one that I can think of, that is probably hanging in the living room of my parents' apartment. Yeah. There you
go. That's an Instagram challenge for you.
Good one.
I'm going to post mine on the gram. I want to see yours up there as well on the Matthias Lebo Underwater Instagram. I'm excited.
We can do that. We can do that.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome. Let's dive into today's topic. So we're talking about travel. You know, in the pre-COVID normalcy life, you do a ton of travel. I know you've got a ton of travel coming up and lots of stuff planned. And at the same time, I don't know if you're the same as me, but anytime I'm packing my thousands of dollars of camera gear, it always gives me anxiety. It always gives me butterflies in the stomach because we invest so much. These are the tools we use to do our job. We need them. And we're trusting them to airlines, which are, in my opinion, some of the least trustworthy companies out there. It's like, here, take all my personal possessions that I love and need to do my job, and hopefully they arrive on the other end intact. So I know you're big on protection. What I want to do with this video, if it's okay, is we'll start small and we'll talk about each individual piece, how you pack that, and then we'll work up to sort of the luggage size. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Let's talk about that. So how do you pack actually, like, your lights, your camera housing, your lenses?
Yes, well, there's different ways how I pack all these different pieces of equipment. Well, if we start with the camera housing,
first. This is one of the things that I try to, well, obviously the camera housing I can't really take with me as a hand luggage because it's just too big and heavy, so I pack it in the checked-in luggage. And as you mentioned before, putting something in the checked-in luggage always does scare me a little bit as well. Not knowing how it's going to be handled, how people are going to, you know, treat it. I don't see it, I don't have any control over it, so I try to protect it as much as I can. A lot of camera housing manufacturers will provide little pouches or bags that you can put your housing inside for transportation. Whenever that is present, I would always use one of these bags to put your camera housing in there. Take as much of the housing apart as you need to be able to fit it into that pouch. Close the pouch. Normally these pouches are fairly tight, so there's not a lot of space inside there. If there is some space, you can put some other stuff in there to extra pad the housing inside of the padding case itself, if that makes any sense. But other than that, I use that casing and then put that into a suitcase, and I normally use a hard shell suitcase where I put all the housing elements into that suitcase. The lenses always go into hand luggage. I would never put my lenses into the checked-in luggage because they have lots of small little elements inside of them, and they're much more sensitive to shocks, like to any sort of shocks that can happen by throwing the suitcase onto a car or anything. So whenever possible, no, not whenever possible, always mandatory, put your lenses in your, always, don't ever think about not putting them in your hand luggage. And cameras also, like all my camera bodies always go into hand luggage. I always carry at least 2 of the same camera bodies with me, just for redundancy. If something happens to one of the camera housings, I always have a second one that I can replace. That's not something mandatory if you're on a vacation trip, but if, like we do, if you're on a work trip and you're being paid to go somewhere and film, you just can't afford to end up with no camera body to film. So you always have to carry a second one with you in that case. And then ports and all this other stuff I always put into the checked luggage as well, so into the big suitcase, the hard shell suitcase. My lights go in there as well. I don't worry too much about lights. You can pet the lights fairly well and put them into the suitcase, but batteries obviously can't be in the suitcase. So all batteries from your camera, the lights, your drone, whatever it is, they all need to go into your carry-on.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are you using for your carry-on bag? Is that a standard camera bag?
Yes, it's one of the Löw Pro, I think it's called Tactic Pro something. It's a standard camera bag. Yeah, it's a standard camera bag that I use. I like that you can actually set it up in different compartments in the way that it suits your personal needs. So you can make these compartments as big or as small as you need them to be, to put your cameras in there, to put your batteries, hard drives, whatever comes in there, you can put everything in there and organize it nicely. So I'm sure you do the same. So when you look for a filter or a battery or something, you know exactly which compartment you have to reach in and pull it out. And that makes your life so much easier.
Yeah, I do the same. I have the exact same bag. Yeah. So if, I do a couple of things different though from you. I went all in on the Cinebag system. Not sponsored, by the way. But I like what these guys do because they work in the movie and film industry and make gear bags to protect, you know, $50,000 cinema cameras. So they've got a good pedigree in protecting gear, and then they made a splash, pun intended, into the underwater filming market by bringing out a whole series of port cases and underwater housing cases and so on. So I bought one of their entire range, and I've been using those. I took the whole set to South Africa, and I just find that, you know, super useful. I also have their square grouper, which is their big kind of rinse tank bag, but I don't use that as luggage. That goes flat and gets packed together with my camera housing. And then I use that on site to transport the camera from hotel room to the boat or whatever it may be. But apart from that, yeah, t-shirts is a top tip. So for example, this is a port case So if I had a wide angle port that I fit in here, that space around it, I'm going to pack that with underwear and t-shirts so that it can't rattle around anywhere. Big fan of that. Pretty much the same, you know, packing wise as you in terms of the way I distribute my gear. 100% agree, never check your lenses, never check your camera bodies either, because although they're not as delicate as lenses, you need them with you. You can't do anything without them. Laptop, obviously, the nice sleeve in the Low Pro Tactic bag I like for my laptop because it's nice and easy to get it out of airport security and put it away again. And then for luggage, for me, personally, I like Pelican. Some people on my channel may have seen that I did a how to pack your dive gear video before we went to South Africa. Big fan of the Pelican boxes. There's a trade-off. That it's definitely not all pros. The cons are that the box, they're not even a bag, the box themselves are heavy. They're sort of 16 pounds out of your 50-pound allowance is the box. So that can encompass some people. But I found that if I get the large heavy boxes that I as a big dude can stand on, jump up and down, and they don't crack or break, then that's really the acid test for baggage handlers. Let's be honest, that's why we're spending all this money. So they're really strong. Same as you, I put all the stuff in the padded boxes that they come in, or in the Cinebag port cases. Fill in as much space as possible with clothing, and then yeah, that's a good step to reduce my anxiety. Let's put it that way. but it never completely goes away.
I was just gonna say, there's no way that you can control it in a way that you know it's never. It's always going to be safe and it's never going to happen anything to it. But you can minimize, as you say, that risk by just making sure that you pack accordingly and make sure that you do have enough padding around all your stuff and keep it as safe as you possibly can that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for additional protection, really after that, you've done everything you can. It just comes down to insurance. So if you do have an accident, then you've covered and you can hopefully recoup some losses. But I think we're going to talk about that in the next episode, aren't we?
Yes, I think that's the plan here, yes. I was just gonna intervene here quickly. I was just wondering if there's anything else other than, you know, your camera body, your lenses, hard drives and so on that you carry with you as essentials in your carry-on. What is like your pro tip as an essential that you need to have with you in your carry-on bag?
Honestly?
Yes.
I always have a complete change of clothing with me in my carry-on. Always. Okay. T-shirt, pair of shorts, pair of underwear. Normally I travel in flip-flops or slip-on shoes, so I'm not worried about socks or anything for tropical destinations. Always have one complete set of clothing, because that'll make you miserable if your luggage gets lost or delayed and you get to your hotel and you can't even get clean. That is the worst feeling. So I always have one complete set of clothing that's rolled up somewhere in my camera bag. You know, just a clean t-shirt and a clean pair of underwear make you feel like a new man, even when you've gone through the experience of lost luggage. So that's probably my top tip. I know that sounds like a really sort of basic thing, but it makes the world a difference if you ever have an incident like that.
Awesome, great tip. Yeah, I like that.
How about you? What have you got?
I have probably the most important thing that I always take with me is a action camera, whether that be a GoPro, a Osmo Action, a Paralens, any camera that I know that I can take into the water and film with it, just in case that my big bag with my camera housing, the ports and everything I need to professionally film underwater doesn't arrive in time or is delayed, so I don't waste any time on location not being able to film underwater. But at least I've got, even if it's just an action camera, at least I've got a camera that I can take into the water, even if it's just down to 10 meters maybe, but I can take it into the water and I can grab some shots and I can already be productive during that first day, 2, 3, however long it takes before my luggage gets delivered if it was lost on the way. So I sacrifice a clean t-shirt for the ability to have a camera that I can take into the water. So James, if I may just add one more thing to the list of stuff that I carry with me on dive trips, it would be this. I always have a couple of pieces of Swiss chocolate and a couple of Swiss Army knives with me. You might ask yourself, why? It's a very simple reason. I've found in my years of diving all around the world that if you come to a dive center, whether you're working for them or you're just there as a guest, but you come there and you can give something to the local dive guides and the helpers on location, whether that be, you know, just a piece of chocolate, or maybe for the dive center manager, if you can hand them like a Swiss Army knife, they're just gonna be so grateful. They're gonna try everything they can to make everything you want possible. And it's opened doors and opened possibilities to me so many times in the past, just having these little pieces with me and, you know, just going that extra mile of bringing something with me and making friends from the very beginning.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Matthias Lebo carries Swiss Army knives in his carry-on luggage.
No, in the checked bag, not carry-on. Don't do that.
Security!
Oh no, not again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same actually. When I go to a destination, normally if I'm diving from a boat that I'm not familiar with, I don't know how the system works. Normally my first day, I'll only take the action camera anyway. So yeah, having that in the hand luggage is a good tip, so that it's always available to you before you break out the sort of big rig. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah, very cool. Very cool, my friend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Matthias, a pleasure as always. It's great to see your smiling face, as always.
As always, thank you very much.
So next episode, we're going to talk about insurance and protecting your camera gear, because there are some hidden factors you might want to consider when it comes to insurance and what's covered and what isn't covered. And I'll tell you why I take out a separate policy for my camera gear specifically. That's about it from my side. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, my name's James in Miami.
And this was Matthias in Zurich.
Take care, guys. See you on the next one.
Bye-bye.